right, let's jump right into compensation. As with all of the other modules within the TQ platform, the compensation module is one that's highly configurable and has been designed to be configured around your compensation processes and workflows and budget amounts, et cetera. So I'm going to start with kind of just real briefly showing you kind of how we can set some of the compensation processes and settings up. So I'm going to jump into one of our templates in here just to give you a sense of this. So like all the other modules, our comp module is very template driven. The advantage of that is it allows us to have different compensation templates, which basically would correspond to different workflows and budget amounts, et cetera, for your different areas of the business. So in this particular example here, we can see that in the kind of when we think about planning and budgeting, what we, kind of some options we have in here. So if you're an organization that is multi-currency, as you can see, we can support multiple currencies. And then this particular one, when we think about the components involved in this compensation workflow, involves both a merit increase and a bonus. So essentially your salary and non-salary type of amounts. If I click in here to see more details on this, when we think about the merit component, as you can see here, we've set that there's a 3% budget for this. Now, again, that could be 4%, that could be 5%, whatever you want to set that to be for whatever group of people this is going to apply to. So nice for me to be able to kind of set that amount and the specifics in there. If I wanted to get into the non-salary component in here, we've set that one. This is more bonus around kind of some goal achievement related components. We've set that at 7.5%. So that's up to you. But again, in our template settings is where we can determine what those components are, as well as what the budget amounts for those are as well. We also can then use the other components in here to determine, when do we want to create them, who's involved in the process, what group of employees this applies to. So again, from a flexibility perspective, you may have one worksheet that applies to in budget amount and workflow and approval processes that applies to maybe your executive team and other ones that apply to different areas of the business. So lots of flexibility there. Once we've determined what all these settings are, and I'm not, in the interest of time, not going to go through everything that's involved in here, from again, creation into allocation, who's going to do that, any approvals and any calibration that may need to be done, et cetera. Once we've set that, the system will then kick off the notifications. So there is a whole notification component built in here, and this allows us to determine what we want to notify, who we want to notify, and then again, if we're approaching due dates and somebody hasn't done what they need to do, there's going to get automated notifications around that as well. One other point just to mention is that part of that configuration of what we were just looking at as well is any salary letters that we want to set. So kind of at the end of the process, the system can produce a salary statement or salary letter that can be used to communicate, as we'll see a little bit later, any adjustments in the final amounts there. All right, so with all of the setting stuff done, what we're going to start with is really a process in here of around allocating a compensation. So in this case, in the scenario I'm going to walk you through, what we've said in this scenario is that basically each manager is going to get a task to allocate compensation for his or her team. So they would get that email notification when they log in, they see the task here for allocating compensation. As I click into this, it's going to take me directly into my compensation worksheet. So the whole concept here is obviously to be able to not only automate your compensation processes and what adjustment we want to make, but another benefit here is we actually have the ability to tie pay to performance, as we'll see in a minute. So that's part of all of the original setup as well, is understanding what are the guidelines that we want to set for for recommended increases based on performance scores and range penetration and where from where you are in your pay band, all of those types of things. So in this case, I'm in the actual worksheet. As we can see up above here, as I get some summary information that tells me kind of where I am. If I want to expand this, I get a little bit more details to see what my current annual salary amount is, the new amounts, for salary as well as non-salary. And over to the right here gives me a little bit more of where we are from a budget, what's been allocated, what's remaining. As we'll notice too, all of this updates in real time. So any changes that I make in the worksheet below, if I have this expanded, in real time we'll be able to see what those adjustments have been. So as we skip down to the worksheet below itself, now we can see the information that's contained in here. It is important to mention that all the columns and the ordering of these is configurable. So the data that we want to present in here is driven by you. In this example, as we can see, we've got the employee's name and employee ID, their title, their start date, pulling in performance scores, etc. Another thing to mention is in this example, you'll see that we can support both hourly amounts as well as annualized amounts. So if you're in your organization have situations where a manager has people reporting to him or her that includes both salary, annualized amount versus hourly amounts, that can be supported. And certainly that becomes helpful as we think about rolling these things up together for any approval or any calibration. Being able to have those in the same worksheet, it works quite nicely. Okay, so again, as we can see, we pulled performance scores in here from our performance module. So we can see not only what the score is, but any of the statements that apply to that. We've got the current salary in here. We've got the quartile that they're in from a range penetration or pay band perspective. So we can see, are they in the first, second, third, or above their pay band? And then you'll notice the guidelines. So again, these are things that we pre-configure, but we can say, based on your performance score and where you are in your pay band, the guideline for your increase is going to be between, in this case, 2.75 to 3.25. Now you'll notice for any of these two, if I click on the little information icon, it's going to open up a compensation matrix for me to allow me to visualize that information. So where is their performance score in relation to where they are from a range penetration perspective? Okay, so based on all that information, performance scores, range penetration, the system can automatically recommend the increase amount based on the guidelines that you set. From there, we can then see over to the right, and the next column is around the merit increase amount. So here, a couple of options here. We can have this be blank from a setting perspective. We can have it auto-populate the middle amount of the recommendation, your guideline amount, so that it just auto-populates that the first time. So there's a couple different options in how we can work with that. In the case here where, in this one, it auto-populated just in the middle amount, if I want to make any adjustments to this and say that this is 4%, it's automatically going to recalculate the amount there for me. And again, if I were to go below the range or above the range, those are settings that we can control. Do you allow an increased recommendation to go above range? Do you not, et cetera? That's all part of the controls. If I did try to, in this case, it's going to allow me, but it's going to highlight it in red to let me know, again, visually that I'm outside the particular range here. Now, it's also worth to note, I can also just put in a dollar amount in here, and that will automatically calculate the percentage. For situations where we may have individuals that are above their current salary range, we don't want to provide any merit increase, so we can automatically see the ability to then handle that through a lump sum adjustment. So we don't continue to drive their salary further and further beyond their pay band, but we still can handle compensation adjustment and just in the form of a lump sum adjustment. Things like proration, we can certainly support, the effective increases, the new salary amounts, both in this case hourly as well as annualized. I can see and visualize in here as well. Now, this example also does include a non-salary component, which is based on goal achievement. And so again, we can see information that's pulled directly from the performance module around goal achievement. And then again, based on that goal achievement, is going to provide recommendations on a bonus guideline amount, and again, provide the calculations that we can adjust from there. So a lot can be happening in this worksheet at once. A couple other things to mention within here. If we want to group our worksheet, if I've got a lot of direct reports, maybe I want to group it by performance score, then I can do so, and it's going to now basically rework and regroup my worksheet based on performance ranges. So I can see everybody in the below expectations, the meets expectations, or the above expectations. And then the information around that also gives me the ability to drill in to only view those people that are above expectations on their performance ratings. So again, just nice ways to interact and group the data within my worksheet in different ways to help me there. If I wanted to visualize this in a dollar amount outside of US dollars, I can change the currency up there, and as you can see, it's changed the amount in the worksheet as well. So nice capabilities there. One other last thing to mention here is the worksheet is exportable. So if you wanted to, do so, you can export it, make work around in there, and then use that to re-enter information back into the worksheet as well. Okay. So once we have done all of the adjustments in the worksheet, it's then up to me to then choose who I want, and then all the people in my worksheet, and I can then submit that. And then it will follow you whatever your workflow is for approval or review and approval. So maybe the case is it's going to, once I submit and make my recommended adjustments, it's going to route it to my manager for approval, or it could then after that go to HR for approval. Now one last thing to point out while I'm in the worksheet is you'll notice this little comment bubble icon. This allows me to put any comments in here relative to what I'm doing, and therefore any reviewers or approvers that are involved in the process can see that there's a call out or a comment in there, and any changes that have been made as well. Okay, so let's say we've made all those changes, we've submitted it, and then maybe that's going to roll up for approval. And the approval worksheet is going to look very similar to the allocation worksheet. It's just going to contain more rolled up data. And again, allows me as that higher level approval to review it, make any changes, tweaks, and then ultimately submit it. Lastly, there is a calibration phase, again, which is maybe a roll-up of all of your comp data that may go to the CFO or whoever is handling all of the final compensation approvals. And again, it's a very similar worksheet that allows me to drill down into any of those details and specifics. So as you can see, in this example, just for demonstration purposes, we've got allocate, we've got approve, we've got calibrate, and I can click into any of those. This is all task-driven, it's all workflow-driven, and again, there's those email notifications and reminders that go along with all of those steps to ensure that we're staying on track, that we're staying on the schedule. So as you can see here, just clicking into this calibration worksheet, again, it's just summarized all of the information. So I can look up above here and see, again, all of the overview information, as well as then down below, I can see more and more data. So in this case, if from a calibration phase, instead of looking at it by employee, maybe I wanted to group this by department or org unit or by pay band or even by manager. I could look at that information and now it'll break it down and I can see from manager to manager the summary amounts, the details around this, and then even choose to drill down into, for example, Ellen and only look then at the worksheet for her team. So lots of different options there. Allows us to do some neat things if I want to look at it by department. Again, now I can see the details for all of HR, for IT, for legal. Just a nice way to allow us to visualize the information and give us the data that we need to make sure that we're making the right decisions that are adhering to the policies and the guidelines and the bonus, the budget amounts that we have set as an organization. And like we said, we can also drive a lot of that through the system as well to ensure that you don't go above your budgeted amounts. Okay, one last thing I want to mention in here from a workflow perspective is once all of the calibration has happened, obviously we're going to want to be able to communicate back to our employees what their new salaried amounts are or any non-salaried amounts. So there is actually a task and phase in here what we call compensation communication. So think of this similarly to performance feedback conversation. And as we click into this particular one for Chris here, and I could have multiple, if I have multiple direct reports, obviously I need to have multiple conversations. What the system does is just very nicely summarize all of the information and the changes in here. So gives me, again, a nice, clean visual of all of that information, what their performance score was, their goal achievement, any proration stuff, what their pay band is, kind of the minimum salary range to maximum, whatever details you want to pull in here and what you want to visualize. And then again, showing them their current salary, their merit increase, what their new salary number is, as well as their bonus amounts. The system also can produce, as we can see here, a salary letter, as I mentioned earlier, so that salary statement that is something that's designed to be communicated and shared with the employee, again, summarizing the review period, their current salary, their increase, their new salary, and any bonus amounts. So as you can see, just giving me the specifics and details around that particular information. So very nice. As you notice in that salary letter, it didn't include any of the merit increase amounts, the pay band information. So that's part of the configuration as well. Okay, from there, one other thing to point out before we take any questions that may be out there is obviously reporting and analytics are an important part of the process. Obviously, there's a lot of data in the worksheets that almost kind of serve as some reporting information. But we also do have individual reports that are built in, as well as dashboards. So you can see that we've got this allocation, compensation review allocation dashboard, a budget summary dashboard, and this status dashboard. So if I want to click into any of these, I get some nice visuals to understand the data that's in what's going on. So this is particularly helpful for HR and for maybe your CFO, kind of to look at that as what is the average allocation amounts from a bonus perspective and from a merit perspective across, again, either the entire organization, or maybe I want to filter this by department. I can see information based on performance versus allocation amounts. And again, just other details in here. If I wanted to look at kind of budget summary information as another type of dashboard, again, another clean set of visuals here that I can look at. All of this data can be filtered, again, based on the different areas, but budget versus actual, budget conformance. We can also see maybe in situations where we're over budget, if we allowed people to do so individually, and then as long as that organizationally we came within, again, part of that setting, or under budget. And then kind of the last one to kind of quickly look at is just more your, the status of where all of your comp reviews are throughout the organization. So day by day, week by week, when your comp process is going on, you can see what percentage of your comp reviews are at what stage of the process. And also this activity by day is nice to see, and counts by org unit, department, et cetera. So a lot of information in here to not only help you automate the processes, make it easier, automatically adhere a budget amount, giving you decisions to enforce, will we allow people to go over budget or not go over budget, the automated workflow around how we route that for review and approval, the ability to roll everything together from a calibration perspective, the ability to produce salary letters. Obviously, of course, at the end of the process, there's the ability to automatically send the final approved new salary amounts back into your HRIS or payroll solution, obviously for processing those payroll amounts. So kind of an end-to-end process that allows you to tie it to performance management to ensure pay for performance and handle, again, your salaried and non-salaried information. And then the ability to have the analytics throughout the whole process. So I hope that helps with giving you a quick little overview. Obviously, we can spend hours in here. If anybody on the phone would like a more detailed overview specifically or deep dive for your organization, please let us know and we can handle that. And with that, Tracy, I will open it up to see what questions we have.
Just two questions. The first one is, how does your compensation integrate with performance appraisals?
Yeah, so Good question, and that's up to you as an organization. That's part of how we configure it. The example we went through, just to reiterate, basically allows us to pull in the performance score from your most recent performance process, and then you can, to incorporate it, you can say if you want to tie your compensation amounts to performance, we can say for a range for anybody, let's assume a 5-point rating scale with a performance score between 3.5% and 5% should get a recommended increase if we're operating on a 4% budget of maybe 3.5% to 4% because they were at the upper end of the range. Now again, just to mention it again also is if we then want to take that a step further, we can also incorporate where they are from a pay band or range penetration perspective in combination with their performance.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. And then the last question was, can you have different budgets and approvals for different areas of the business?
Absolutely. So that's a very common thing. So maybe your executive team is going to have a different process and different components and different amounts than maybe some functional areas, whether that be marketing, sales, operations. So you can have as many different processes, and we handle that through, as I kind of said at the beginning, the templates. So we certainly can, and there's a lot of flexibility around that. Well, thank you again to everybody for taking time out of your day. We appreciate you spending that time with us. Thank you all. Have a great day.